Greetings, beloveds. Thank you for joining us today. Oh,
It's a beautiful morning, and we're up here at our barn, though there aren't any horses as of this moment.
that's true. Though the search is definitely on.
Yeah, and the funny thing is that I feel that a self of mine from years ago would have been kind of beseeching in this quest. Tell me if any of you have experienced this. Oh, please let us find the right horse. Please, praying. Please make everything come together. Please make it not be like this. Please make it be like this. Please that. Please this. Please that. And that kind of got us thinking a little bit about what is prayer? What is communication with Divine Mother? What are we doing when we get into that kind of state?
Yeah, I feel like in the traditions that we grew up in, prayer was sometimes it's just sort of rote.
Mm-hmm.
It's a kind of a ritual, essentially, that you do, for instance, at dinner. And rituals can be anything from very heartfelt in a time to bring us into a different state of mind to something that just becomes habitual and we sort of ignore.
They're kind of like a tradition sometimes. Traditions can be the most amazing thing and super fun, something that everybody looks forward to.
Yeah.
Or it can be, oh, we have to go to, great aunt so and so's because that's the tradition. And yeah.
And then famously, prayer becomes something that comes out of us when we are, when we feel like we are in danger and trouble and
Mm.
a time when we feel beseeching,
Mm-hmm.
as you said. But often that beseeching, I'm going to use the word selfish. Sometimes it comes out of just the idea of self preservation and wanting things for ourselves,
Mm.
which is not bad. And there's nothing wrong with that. But if that's the only time that we find ourselves praying or reaching out to Divine Mother, then we're missing out on something really special that prayer has to offer. And of course, we're going to be talking about prayer maybe in a way that you haven't heard of before.
So, the word fair weather friend comes to mind, and we all know what that means. This is the opposite in a way. Don't just be a kind of foul weather prayer, which isn't to say that we shouldn't communicate with Divine Mother or enter into that state, I think, of communication, of communion, when we are feeling that need at any point in time. And in fact, I think that's going to be the bottom line of this message is the more we can communicate with Divine Mother every moment, the more moments we can string together of a conversation with her, the more rich our relationship with her and with the world will be.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I said the bottom line. We should just be done with
Fun.
this.
Yeah. Taking prayer and making it not into I like to think of it not as something ultimately that's so formal. Please, Divine Mother, there's a place for that maybe. But taking prayer and making it into, I think you used the word conversation
Mm-hmm.
there. Thinking of prayer as our connection, as our relationship with the divine. So at first, when we started exploring any idea of divinity, I felt really weird talking to, let's face it, just talking to myself, right?
Right. Well, a lot of people talk to themselves,
Oh,
so why would you feel strange?
and most of us are doing it in our heads all the time.
Yeah.
But this brought it, yes, into directly into my consciousness. I wasn't just doing it habitually. I was trying to do it on purpose, and it felt weird. And if I'm talking to another human, it feels natural, right? I know that I'm going to deepen my relationship and connection with you if I speak with you, if we share things. There's much more than just speaking, but that becomes an important component of it. But yeah, with with the divine, it felt strange. And that transmuted over time into feeling wonderful. But that process of transmutation, well, we'll be sharing some ways to get started with prayer if you haven't before, or to help it to feel more natural or more integrated with your life as we go on here.
I grew up a little bit differently. I grew up as a Lutheran, and in a rather what would be the word? I don't want to say alternative church, but we had a band and sang cool songs. And for a long time, I actually really loved my church and I loved the feeling. So I grew up with memorizing prayers and saying them as a congregation. And I also grew up with the thought of, okay, dear God, dear Jesus, blah, 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 blah. However, as I grew older and I started to explore more, my prayer turned for me from that sort of very structured, even though I wasn't just saying a memorized prayer every time, but there was a structure to it, to a very organic feeling. Sometimes where when I would pray, I wouldn't think at all words to anything. I would feel feelings that I was having. And so that eventually merged. And so sometimes I pray without words, and sometimes I try to put words to my prayer. But that was a really neat experience for me to start to have of prayer can be deeper than words because eventually words are limiting.
I remember the first time you told me about that and how excited I was about that thought. That because it wasn't just prayer. I was doing herbal magic at that time,
Mm-hmm.
and so the thoughts of magic and just encountering life less verbally and more feeling based. And this is such an important segue, I feel, into the kind of prayer that we're going to be talking about today, because ultimately prayer in this way can give us an entirely different sensation of living. That's why I think today, when I think of praying, it fills me with a wonderful feeling, because when we take that feeling approach, it it's not just during the prayer, but it morphs into our whole life,
Mm-hmm.
so that everything starts feeling different.
I think I want to come back and touch on the thought of conversation with the divine,
Mm-hmm.
with Divine Mother. Uh, in the Lord's Prayer, it says, "Give us this day our daily bread." And when I was younger, I always thought that meant, please feed us and nourish our bodies, which it does. But I think on a deeper level, our daily bread is our spiritual nourishment. And so we pray a lot. And the way we can do that is because we're not necessarily being super formal every time. We do have a formal prayer time every night as a family before bed. However, we also connect multiple times in multiple different ways. And sometimes it's in our heads verbally, sometimes it's verbally out loud, sometimes it's the feeling way. And to me, that begins to create a daily bread, a daily
Mm.
nourishment of a conversation. And it also serves the purpose for me, at least personally, that when I pray, I'm not just going through a laundry list of okay, here's what I'm thankful for, here's what I need. It's a open mindedness. It begins to open me to just receiving and giving, and that kind of openness without expectation helps me to broaden and deepen my connection with the world, with other people, and Divine Mother being them.
Mm.
And I think that's kind of essential in a spiritual journey to have. It's like exercising. If you're only exercise once a month or once a week, you're not going to see the benefits. Yet you don't have to get on a treadmill every single time.
Yes.
Exercise is just movement that has joy and purpose behind it. So anyway, that's just one thing
Uh,
that seems to be kind of essential, at least for us, to really continue to have spiritual growth.
Yes. What a great illustration.
Yeah.
Yeah. Taking it from the treadmill exercise to moving all the time in ways that nurture us. I think it's important to remember that the path of Divine Mother is a mystical path. And so on the outside, it feels like it's about falling in love with Divine Mother. And sometimes we can think of that as Divine Mother as this external person that we can talk to. But remembering that as we see Divine Mother becoming everything, this conversation can happen with our idea of Divine Mother, but it can also happen with the wind. It can happen with all these elements of nature. It can happen with the people around us. So prayer, eventually we want it to become, when I speak to you, when we make this video and we speak to all of you and have this conversation with you, then this can become a prayer.
Mm-hmm.
When you write a comment, you're writing back to Divine Mother in the same way we're speaking with Divine Mother. And we fall in love with the whole world in that way. And so there's this unfolding, this conversation that can lead us towards love. And that's why I think one of the things that we talk about when we talk about prayer is not just having a conversation that's based on things we want, but often on things that we are experiencing. Because part of a good relationship here is not just saying, Rebecca, I want you to do the dishes. It's to say, here's this thing I saw, and here's how I feel about it. And here's the experience I had. I want to share that experience with you. So in sharing experiences, then we start to create this sense of prayer. Now, one aspect of prayer can be as I eat and I say, Divine Mother, experience this food through my senses with me. Taste this, the sensations, the textures, the whole experience. I invite you in to be part of this, to experience it again through me. Now, I, as a kitten, experience that food much more fully, and I'm sharing that experience with Divine Mother in the same way I share an experience with you.
This is such a beautiful thought, because what it comes down to me, this is how my brain is kind of extrapolating it, is that any moment that we experience with awareness, right where we are, becomes a prayer.
Oh, yes, yes, yes.
Yeah. And when we enter into that seeking out of that, and that broadening of what we think of prayer, and then that interaction of experience, we also then are training ourselves to be more present, to be more aware. And that is, first of all, that's the seat, I think, of joy, to be with the moment we're in. And it also has this beautiful way of sort of expanding us into seeking that out more. I wanted to bring up a side thing.
Okay.
Because I have done this. I project, here's Divine Mother, and okay, maybe she's all these things, but she's this source. And when I pray, okay, please give me this, or please give me that, or please make this happen, or even, I've been super struggling with this. I don't know the answer. Can you please give me an answer? And then I'm like, okay. I'm watching, I'm like, okay, and I'm waiting for Divine Mother to prove herself to me.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that's hard in any relationship, when we make a request of someone and then we're waiting for them to prove themselves. I think for me, that kind of prayer, it just makes me feel bad. And I also think it's not really prayer. It's me having emotions and frustrations with the world, because my prayer needs to go deeper. And it's fine if my prayer is, Divine Mother, I am so mad. I am so frustrated. I am so heartbroken. I feel alone. I feel, I feel just desolate. And why aren't you here for me? Why can't I feel you? Where are you? I think that's more genuine, especially if as I do that and I just let everything out, I also feel how that cleanses me. And prayer is meant to cleanse us. It's meant to be a vehicle for feeling all these things that we can't justify or understand in our minds, and giving it to something else that can take it. And I was sitting in the woods the other day and I was thinking, the trees don't care if I have my laundry done. The wind doesn't mind if someone I love has recently passed away. And somehow the beauty of the sunset and the planet in the sky and the comet overhead say to me, hey, just give me whatever you've got and I can take it. And that in itself is just this bit, for me, a more beautiful, more calming way to connect in prayer than to be waiting and asking for the proof.
Yes. So, in the first way, in that waiting, looking for the proof, we're lodged in our own state of being and sitting there waiting for something to come and change it. What you're talking about is how prayer can transform us,
Yeah.
can shift how we feel and how we experience life. There are there are so many times we want to share something that's inside of us, and it might be something we are ashamed of or wish we would have done differently or we're scared about. And sometimes we're blessed with someone that we're so connected with in our life that we can share anything, which feels so good. But sometimes we don't have that. And when we can reach out to Divine Mother, feel loved unconditionally, and say, oh, here's what I'm feeling. And it can be explosive, it can be sad, it can be joyful, it can be inviting in, knowing that Divine Mother will meet you equally in all of those places, that you don't have to be any certain thing. This can be so liberating for us to be in a relationship of unconditional love, because it's not something most of us humans get to experience in this life. And when we don't experience it, we spend a lot of time and energy shelling parts of ourselves, hiding away, and not being able to just to be present, as you put it,
Yeah.
to be ourselves.
Yeah, the more that we try to hold things in, we need the expression, and it is really great if you can say it to another person. But if you can just share, just starting that flow of letting things go through you, because the majority of times the things that make our life challenging are just the fact that we're not allowing ourselves to be what we need to be. um, I just sometimes I don't know what to pray. I have been in places where I can feel grief stricken and I can feel torn and I can feel as though I am in a solution is no, there's no solution. It's unsolvable, an unsolvable problem because of however the world is organized. And I will just pray. I don't know what to pray. I'm just coming to you. I'm just coming to you and I don't even know what I want or how I feel. And I think it's really important to remember that there is a power in not knowing and in being okay with the not knowing. And that even if there are times when we feel alone, because I wish I could say every time I pray that I feel, oh, like the Divine Mother's love and I feel a message. And there are times that it's just not there. But I'm remembering when Mirabelle was younger, she was about 7 or 8. She struggled really a lot with anxiety. And it was a very scary experience for us as parents.
Yeah.
And what was really hard about it is that she would occasionally get into these places where she was so agitated that she would yell at us, and she would say, why aren't you helping me? And she would grab a hold of me. I want you to help me. Why aren't you helping me? And I'm thinking, I am here. I will do anything for you. And I could never understand, initially, like, why is this happening to me? But to me, it's so much Divine Mother. All of her love is there, present with this being that is experiencing great stress and trauma. And the being can't see it, but she is still there. And so I picture that whenever I'm in a place that I cannot seem to get through, and I pray and I don't feel anything, I think, is it Divine Mother not being there for me? Or am I that individual that is so knotted and stressed that I am preventing myself from seeing that love that's there? And boy, is it there, as strong as it could ever be. And so I have gratitude for that experience, because it's gifted me with this vision. And often when I see that, then my prayer becomes, Divine Mother, help me feel your love that is always there. So I don't know, sometimes just talking about, for me, how I pray or the ways that it works, I find helpful because it's so different from how I grew up.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that knotted, that stressedness that you talk about is so normal in our world. And it comes from this ego sense and these parts of ourselves that we want to shell and hide away. And that way of living, it hurts. It's not super fun, and it prevents us from being further engaged in the world. And so in this release, in this letting go, in this feeling that you can be yourself, that you're loved for who you are, that you're okay right now, even if you're angry or frustrated or hurt or
You
feel alone, whatever you feel, then we can start to undo some of those knots.
Mm-hmm.
And in that undoing, that's where our love affair with the world can really start to happen.
It's like a knot. I, I'm this is so weird, but ever since I was little, I'm good at getting knots undone.
Oh, yes.
Especially
yes.
things that are really tangled. And if you pull and you try to pull, say, a skein of yarn, it gets worse. But if you release, you try to get those things to soften, then you can find the place you have to be very soft. That's just what it made me think of. We should talk a little bit about ways to pray, what that looks like, what it can look like, because it's completely unique. And I like to think every prayer is its own prayer. So it's like a snowflake. There will never be another one that's the same.
Yeah.
But there are some kind of, I don't know, I don't want to say guidelines, but some ways
to get started.
Yeah, to just jump into that.
Yeah. So this is if you don't currently have prayer in your life. Look at that beautiful.
I know. I just saw that at the corner of my eye. It's so cool. I don't think it would show up, otherwise it would show you.
As you've seen many times in your life, there will be rays of light created by the sun. Let's try to see if we can show people.
Okay. At the end, we'll see if we can.
And so when we show you, you're going to see...
it's like a reverse ray.
Right. The exhaust from a jet. But then there's a dark streak going down through the sky, which is kind of the reverse of that. Okay, let's see if we can do this.
I don't know. Is it disappearing? Maybe we should try to show them. Oh, I feel like it's already going as we're talking about it. Are you getting it?
It's funny. It kind of is.
It's not even... Wait. It's not even there anymore. Oh, we're going to sound crazy.
Well, we probably already do.
We are crazy. That's okay.
Hopefully in a good way.
We acknowledge our craziness and use it well. Craziness is a tool, depends on the user.
Okay.
Yeah, now it's gone.
Now it's gone.
Wow. That was amazing.
So, it was a super long dark line that went
almost as though when you see sun rays and then there's this streak in between the sun rays. Yeah.
It was like the dark streak without the light.
Yeah. Maybe there was a cloud over there that moved or something. Okay. Amazing. So let's talk a little bit about the ways, the guidelines for just jumping in, getting started.
I think one thing that's important right in the beginning is to think a little bit about who you want to speak with. So in the path of Divine Mother, we're feeling the presence of a of an all-loving Divine Mother who who's always there with us and for us and connected with us. Right now in your life, you can frame that however you want. So that could be a Divine Mother who's a motherly figure, who's a little austere, who will look down on your life and encounter you like that. It could be like kind of the relationship I think of you having a motherness with our children, where it's more, it has a lot of playful aspects and connected aspects and super sharing. And I often encourage people, especially if you've come from a tradition that had more austerity in it, to try to picture Divine Mother as a little more playful, mischievous, fun. And this can be hard for some of us, again, if we came from those traditions, but it can break down some walls. And thinking, like, how do you want to encounter Divine Mother right now? And then often the best way, in my mind, to start, if you haven't done any prayer, is to choose some kind of a trigger in your life. And I don't mean trigger in a bad way, but I mean something that's going to set you into prayer. And it can be something that you're going to do all the time. So
Drink a glass of water.
Drink a glass of water. So let's say you have your glasses of water 4 times a day. And
because you do, right?
Because
because you're very good at that, and you do that every day. All human beings do that all the time.
And then when you drink your water, you know this is the moment that you're just going to call Divine Mother into that experience with you. It works really well if you have a little one, an infant or a toddler, and you say, when she wakes up from her nap, that's the moment I'm going to invite Divine Mother in and say, have this experience with me. Look at...
I say when they're sleeping. Start when they're sleeping. As a previous nursing mom, I'm like, I don't know if that's gonna work. Right. No, anyway, I'm just
yeah, definitely with an infant, you're right there. I was thinking about some people that I work with who were using their child as that.
Yes, such an awesome.
Yeah, because this is, a child is someone who you love as close to unconditional as probably we humans can get. And we don't expect anything out of them. We may feel frustration once in a while, but as humans,
definitely once in a while.
But usually when they're little, we're not expecting things out of them. We're just loving them the way they are. And so to say, Divine Mother, see through my eyes, to look at the beautiful color of their eyes and the way the light plays through their hair with that water. When we drink a glass of water, that water is amazing stuff. And if you step back a moment from our habitual way of seeing, it's super clear, like this perfect gemstone. It has the weirdest sensation.
Yeah, water is amazing once you start looking at it.
Whoa, it's incredible. And so, Divine Mother, experience this with me. Inviting her into an experience is often a great way to get started with prayer, because it also has that side benefit of making us more present moment and more engaged with at least that one little trigger aspect of our life. And you can start with just one, and then you can add another one next week and another one until it starts to get more and more habitual.
I like to do, from bouncing off from that, this is sort of a alternative side of that. It's really good to have that so that it's steady. Then from there, I like to do any moment where for a second I'm very present. So it could be, as you mentioned, someone is serving me really good food and I go, oh, this is so good. And then the next moment, oh, Divine Mother, taste this. And so walking, and all of a sudden the leaves are blowing, the golden, wind is blowing the golden leaves off the tree and they're shining. Okay, that moment right there. It's invite Divine Mother in. And the beautiful thing about that is that it's usually a moment of beauty, gratitude. And so I am also not just inviting Divine Mother in, but as you say, I'm starting to cultivate awareness of these really precious moments in my life too.
That's such a great way to go because there's usually some moments during our day that automatically get us a little bit into that, what I call a sense of awe, which is when we're more engaged.
Yeah.
And so those can be, oh, I would say easier than the way I was saying. I'm looking over that tree. There's this beautiful red maple over there, and the way the wind is playing and turning over some of the leaves, it automatically brings me into a state of
But
awe.
you're trained into that. We have spent
That's true.
years
That's true.
expressing gratitude, sharing it with each other, with our family, every moment that happens that we can, we do that. So it's just important to remember that we shouldn't expect of ourselves to have this automatically if it isn't something. Everything we do, we train our brains. We are always training ourselves. So I find it easier too. However, I'm trying to imagine myself of 30 years ago. I would need the glasses of water. I would need when my child wakes up, or when I touch a certain thing. So anyway, I just didn't want people to feel as though they should just automatically have this and it's going to flow easily. And sometimes we need the reminders.
That's a good reminder. A glass of water again. I can forget.
You need to do the glass of water.
I do need to drink water.
As we have already said.
I can forget that that's not something that could automatically put us into a state of awe. And so, but the positive part of that is recognizing that as we do train our brains, as we fall in love with the world, as we engage more, this happens more and more. So it's something that gets easier as we go along until it becomes a slippery slope into a state of awe and love that can then be tough to get out of because you start to feel it just more and more often.
Or it can carry you through. If you run into a hard time, your practice of doing this, of this prayer, of this awareness, of this gratitude, of this oneness, the more that you practice it, the more cushion you will have, even though it might not feel like it at the time, you will have when there is grief, there is loss, there is depression, there is anxiety, there are icky things in the world. That will help you to bridge that time. Again, even if it might not feel like it, it is there for you, and just keep doing it. Just like you wouldn't stop exercising and eating healthy. I mean, sometimes we do, but in general, a healthy way of being continues to want to seek a healthy way of being.
Yeah.
So prayer begins to seek prayer.
Do you have other ways people could get started?
I think that what's really nice sometimes to do, because I often pray when I feel anxiety or things in order to help calm me down, in order to seek something more outside of myself, because sometimes when I'm in an anxiety mind or I am frustrated, I realize, okay, I maybe don't have the coping mechanisms or the skills right now, maybe whatever it is, I'm too tired, I'm hungry, whatever. Then I seek outside of myself. And that is very good, and that is very I think that's a natural time to pray. So I like to sometimes try to pray in a place where I am calm. So we've got the kind of habitual way of praying, we've got the awe-inspired way of praying. I think it's nice to take a time when you're in a place, a room, maybe for me, I wake up in the morning and I'm very restful, and before I get out of bed, I look at the light, I breathe, I hear my family. I usually get up first. Well, sometimes you do, but you're resting. So I listen to my family breathing, I listen to the morning sounds, and I think, right now, in this very moment, I'm safe, I'm at peace. And I just put a hand on my heart and a hand on my belly, and I just breathe for a while. And a lot of times I just do kind of a silent prayer. I feel that I am cared for. I feel that I am enough. I feel that my life is enough. And I kind of just let it go from there into a dialogue with Divine Mother. Do you have anything you want to share? And then often a prayer to be reminded that this spiritual journey and my relationship with her and her becoming all things is my highest goal, is my thing that in a way matters most of all, that I want to guide my life as I go forward. And I think for me, doing that kind of a prayer in that kind of a space helps me train my brain so that when I am in a more anxious place and I pray, prayer is a calming thing. So I
Yeah.
just recommend, if you can, once a day, morning or evening, wherever you're comfortable, or if you have a spot in nature that you go, nature prayer, amazing.
Mm.
A sit spot. Find a time that you can be with yourself for a moment, where you can be still, where you can just breathe and be present.
Mm.
That's a really nice kind of prayer.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah, those are some of the most important for me, I think. Those morning
Mm-hmm.
and night. I often sleep outside, and then I'll, nobody can hear me out there, and so I'll pray out loud. I'll speak out loud with Divine
That
Mother
is
and have
also another great way.
conversations.
I do
Yeah.
that when I'm driving the car, and that's really fun. And it's fun to talk because a lot of times, I don't know if this happens to you, but I will actually get
Oh
my
yeah.
voice back in my head, or I think of it as Divine Mother's voice. And often she'll say things that I'm like, what?
Quite surprised at.
Whoa, I, as Rebecca, would never think that or never feel that way. That's really interesting. And that those pieces are usually things that then throughout years going by, that one message comes back to me again and again, and it comes back to me as this is Divine Mother's message to
Yeah.
me. So be open.
And that's, if we're having trouble connecting or believing that there could be something divine, I feel like that's part of the trick of all this. If we come from a more rational kind of mindset, we often want that proof that
Yeah.
you were talking about. But the mystical path is, it's not. Go.
Well, the mystical path is all the scientists out there who believed even though there wasn't proof until one day there was proof. Right? That's the mystical path of science, is doing science for this interaction. I'm just thinking there's countless people out there who said, no, I am sure that this is true. And everyone laughed and was like, you're the laughing stock. It's ridiculous. And then, 100 years later, wow, guess what? That's true. And now we live our lives by it. This
is a different.
Sorry,
Probably,
yeah.
well, but
I'm really
I do
passionate about
feel
this.
like
there's a mysticalness to the path of science. Anyway.
yeah, and I feel like I've never thought of it this way, but I feel like if we look at the history of science, it's gone from a place where it was all about exploration.
Mm.
What is out there? An open mind. What are these things in the
Yeah.
in the sky?
Why
These
does
little
this
dots.
happen?
Why do some move and others
Yeah.
are still? And to today, where there's still exploration, but for a lot of science, it's become more trying to keep things in boxes, and there's more resistance, I think, as science went along to keeping things within a box, and then someone comes along and proposes a new theory or a new hypothesis, and it gets pushed back
Yeah.
until eventually it can start to break in through some of those boxes. So
I totally didn't mean to interrupt you, but
that's
it
a
was
really
just like,
cool
this
thought,
is
actually.
mystical scientism, or not scientism, whatever.
Right, and that's where it's if we're sure that there's not a divine thing, or we're just looking for that proof, and we say, okay, I'm going to make a prayer, and show me the proof. It's not going to happen. This is a path that takes a very, maybe that original scientific mind, a very inquiring, exploratory mind. But when we stay on that path, we do eventually find that Divine Mother speaks back to you.
Prayer is super powerful.
Yeah.
It's just a different way. It's not the modern way of put out X, expect Y. Do this, get that. It's when we pray, it's a really good idea to just imagine just that openness that you're talking about, and transparency and honesty and listening. receptivity, that we don't know it all, that maybe this prayer is the prayer that will shift something in our perspective that will allow us to move forward on a new spiral of the pathway.
Wow.
Okay, we could probably talk about prayer forever.
We could.
Maybe not
Yeah,
forever.
my mind is still going on this.
So we're gonna start there. That's like the prayer beginning conversation, intro to prayer, and just give some of these things a try. And if you have a way that you love to pray, that you consider prayer, I want to hear about it. We want to hear about it because I want to pray every single way that there is. So
yeah, share down in the comments your struggles with it, your explorations, everything about it. We would love to hear. Okay, so much love to you all. Thanks for being with us.